Sit somewhere where it's not like awkward to like get up.
Oh. Oh, I see. Oh, I don't know where are you sitting? Should we also have yes, I know.
Oh. Hi. Doing all right. How are you? I'm just trying to figure out where's the most convenient for me to.
Hi, Baylan. We've got 2 out of 3 LEO. Would you like one?
What?
Would you like an LEO?
Sure.
Okay.
I love your outfit. I get one more time with your name. Drew.
I admire your Nike. I saw you like plucking on, and I was like, I feel for you. What a career. But you're wearing like light colors.
There we go. I feel like I get extra points because I yes. It was in the apartment. We were moving out, and someone was like, "Throw this away," and I was like, "Smash!"
Jason, I'm gonna start singing a little tune and then welcome people in. So feel free to just like go on whenever, anytime after I start singing.
She didn't want to come.
It's so amazing to be in the room together in person. I'm Alan. I am the rabbinic intern here at Hillels of Georgia for High Holidays. This is the Mincha service. We are on the home stretch. First, just want to welcome everyone here and acknowledge that we've all been walking into these public spaces the last day with a lot of feelings, a lot of joy, and I know also for me some nervousness in my body. And I quote this teaching in the packet, but the Neila Shalom famously says that in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, there's this special evil impulse created for each person to stop them from feeling. And that is what we need to get through in order to do the work of creating a community that's better at listening, that's kinder, that's more compassionate. So I just want to take a second before we even begin to ask people one more, just how are you feeling right now walking into this room? Hungry. That's a very good one. Second that.
I feel pretty good.
So we are going to bring all those emotions in for all the singing that we'll be doing first now, and with the joint Neila services in just a little bit. We're starting off with the Torah portion. This is a portion of the sexual prohibitions from the book of Leviticus. The thesis is this idea of sex. We're the life-giving activity, and so Yom Kippur, which is the rehearsal of death, traditionally people remove themselves from it. It also contains one of the most infamous passages in the Torah, the ban on homosexual sex. So I just want to say this is really abhorrent. It is a blemish on the tradition and the Torah, and something that I find upsetting when I get to it, which is the reason why it's my personal custom to read it. I think it's important to actually name the ugliness that can exist even in a beautiful tradition like Judaism. That our tradition is not free from taint. We can use our religion to do really bad and harmful things. People like Baruch Goldstein and Yigal Amir, they knew their Torah. They were not coming from nowhere. So just recognizing that is important. And I also want to say, Yom Kippur is a day of forgiveness and atonement. Sometimes our tradition has some atoning to do. Sometimes what we inherit is actually letting us down in really significant ways. So I just ask as we head into this Torah service, what are those things that you need to hear an apology for from your tradition, from your community, and what is the forgiveness that you're ready to extend? So we begin with the Ashrei for the mental service, starting on page 600. I'm sorry, the opening of Yar for the mental service, starting on page 670. Vayomer Moshe Adonai Tisam Ve'atzutzu Oilecha Ve'adirtzu Mipanecha Ki Mitzyan Tetzei Zara Ki Mitzyan Tetzei Zara Devarma Yerushalayim Baruch Shenasan Torah Baruch Shenasan Torah Le'amor Yisrael B'Kedushato. Adonai Adonai Gidula V'Givura V'Tiberes V'Hanetzach Kibo B'Shamayim V'Aretz Kibo B'Shamayim V'Aretz Adonai V'Malachav V'Nisnazel Kol Rosh Romemel Adonai Eloheinu V'Hishtakabel Le'Adam Yikadesh Adonai Eloheinu. You may be seated. Page 672. V'tigalev v'tera ema v'tevelinu v'zman karev v'nomar amen. V'chalav v'tasinu v'leisas ama b'Yis Yisrael afinu chesed rachmim v'ratzon v'nomar amen. Hakol havugad Eloheinu v'snei chavod l'Torah na'alamas.
Chaim Yosef ben Yitzchak.
Chaim Yosef ben Yitzchak Aliyah Rishon.
Baruch Adonai Hambarak. Baruch Adonai Hambarak le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. V'daber Adonai al Moshe lemor daber al bnei Yisrael v'amarta lehem ani Adonai Eloheichem kama asa eretz Mitzrayim asher yishavtem ba lo tasu v'kama asa eretz Canaan asher ani mevi etchem shama lo tasu v'chotechem lo telechu et mishpatai tasu v'et chukotai tishmeru lechet bahem ani Adonai Eloheichem Ushmartem chukotai v'et mishpatai asher yaseh otam adam v'chai bahem ani Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam natav b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. Na'amad Makachava V'tzimcha V'Yisrael V'nataleya L'aliyah Hasheni.
Baruch Adonai Baruch
Baruch Adonai Baruch Adonai.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. Ish ekol sher b'tzorot v'tikvu l'kol erva ani Adonai. Ervat yadicha v'ervat imecha lo tegla imcha hi lo tegla ervata. Ervat eshet avicha lo tegla ervat avicha hi. Ervat achocha ervat avicha ervat imecha moledet bait moledet chutz. Lo tegla ervata ervat bat imcha vatifa lo tegla ervatan. Ki ervat baena ervat badeshet avicha moledet avicha achocha hi lo tegla ervata. Ervat achot avicha lo tegla sher avicha hi. Ervat achot imcha lo tegla ki sher imcha hi. Ervat achi avicha lo tegla al ishtalid lo tigra dodacha hi. Ervat chalofta lo tegla eshet imcha hi lo tegla ervata. Ervat eshet avicha lo tegla ervat achicha hi. Ervat isha v'vita lo tegla et bat bna v'et bat bita. Lo tikach l'gadav ervata asher ahina zimai. Ve'isha el achota lo tikach litzra l'gadav ervata leha bechayeha. Well, 8 Isha, Benina Mata, Lotigrapha, Erbata, Eshat, Amitha, Lotitan, Lishafata, Zara, Lotamava, Lotamava, Mizrafa, Lotitan, Labil Mother, Pola, Tefalel, Echem, Alahafa, Ani Adonai. Amen. Grab your lines out. Underneath Michael, if you do this. Nalaman. Rav Moshe Elisha. Then you sell the Shoshana. Lalian Nafir.
Baruch Adonai Baruch
Baruch Adonai
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chavanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato Baruch Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And so far, Lord Tishkat, Mishkri Ishat Ve'Vehi. Chol Behema Latin Shafafcha Letamava. V'Isha Latama B'Knei Behema L'Riva Tevelu. Al Titnu B'Chol Ela. Ki B'Chol Ela Titnu HaGoyim Asher Ani Meshalech Mipnechem. V'Yidma Haaretz. V'Avkod Avana Aleha. V'Tegi Haaretz Et Yoshah. U'Shmartem Atem. V'Chukotai V'Mitzvotai. V'Lo Tasu Mikol Sovot Ha'Igla Hazra. V'Ger HaGarbat HaKukan. Ki Yakol Dovat Ha'el Asu Anshei Haaretz Asher Lifnechem. V'Tidma Haaretz. V'Lo Taki Haaretz Etchem. V'Tamachem. V'Tamachem Ata Kasher Ka'a Et Goy Asher Lifnechem. Ki Gol Asher Yaseh Mikol Dovat Ha'Igla. V'Nikotu V'Nevashot Asaf B'Kerav Aman. V'Shmartem Mishmarti V'Vilti Asaf Mitzvot. V'Tvayvot Asher Na'asu Lifnechem. V'lo titamu bahem ani Adonai Elohechem.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam netav b'tokenu Baruch Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Alamot Hamadia.
You gonna make me look this thing?
You right?
Yeah.
You knew there was a catch, right?
All right. Look at that.
Now gets it with the Haftarah from Rina. Just a quick word. We're reading the entire book of Jonah, one of the earliest and short stories that we have. Feel free to take a seat. Book of Jonah is fundamentally about a guy who wants to live by the rules. Thinks good people should be rewarded bad people should be punished, that's the way the world should work. And all of a sudden, God comes along and says, I'm not going to live with that. I'm going to totally throw enough people into your life. You're going to be tossed out of a ship on a storm, no matter how hard you try to escape. You're going to be in isolation in the belly of a fish for 3 days. And when Jonah's in isolation, he sings out this beautiful song of joy and vulnerability. And then he comes back out. He stood out. And he wants to live according to the rules again. He says good people should be rewarded, bad people should be punished. So what does God do? Sends this tiny little kikayon, this ricinus plant. And it says, look how fragile this is, and how beautiful, and how quickly it dies, but also how amazingly valuable. And I think this is a COVID story, right? We have all been in this isolation. We've all learned what it is like not to live by the rules. And now we're back out in dry land again. And the question is, are we going to see those little kikayon plants? Are we going to find comfort in the beauties that life has to offer us, despite that temporality and vulnerability? So I turn it over to Reina to have to read. We're on page 682.
It's very long, so I apologize in advance. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nim tovim v'atzah v'yigatam hanemayim b'emet. Baruch atah Adonai haboker b'torah u'moshe abdo Yisrael amo b'nei ha'emet b'tzedek. Vayhi devar Adonai el Avinu mitzar lemor v'mlech el minzeh. Hayhadolah ukrai lecha ki atzaratam lefanai. Vaykom yana libra kashisha lefnei Adonai. Vayev Yaakov atzon Yaakov Tarshish. Vaytin Zakara vared bal loy machem Tarshisha lefnei Adonai. Adonai Heitzev l'gedolah el hayam v'yitzak gadol bayam v'choniyah v'yishaval yishaver. Bayram Malachim, Baytrisha Ohai, Baytrinavim, Asher Boniyah, El Hayam, Bakel Malachem, Bayana, Yara, Yitze Hashkina, Bayishka Veridam, Baykar Elad, Rabba Kodel, Berman, Malachai, Yadam, Kushira, Elohecha, Ulai, Yitashe, Elohim, Manil, Lonamed, Finashrei, Yubefu, Napilar, Alo, B'nei, Dada Shami, Harahazel, Bani, by Pilu, Alo, by Gora, Yana, by Miri, Live, Megana, Bani, Basher, Erlini, Harahazel, Bani, Mamzecha, Meyain Tada, Marzecha, Demizer, Amata, by Merlechem, Idriana, Fi, Betzadonai, Elohe, Hashemayim, Ani, Yare, Asher, Satayam, Betze, Bashar. By Hanashim, Yiragid Allah, by Mary Live, Mazor, Tasita, Yedu Hanashim, Kimutne Adonai, Huvarek, Edi Lacham, by Mary Live, Masel Love, by Shafayam Elenu, Ki Hayam Holifis of Air, by Malikam, Sarani, Batimuni Hayam, by Shafayam Elechem, Ki Yotefani, Ki Vishali, Hasar, Hagadol, Hazel Elechem. Vaychanashim, Vashib, Ahabasha, Velekavu, Ki Hagam, Lekasar Lekan, Vaykra Adonai, Vamru, Anadonai, Ananadav, Nefesh, Haish, Azeb, Yovitain, Elated, Damnaki, Yatadonai, Kasha Hapata Asita, Vaisu, Ertana, Vaitibuka, Ahayam, Vayimut, Hayam, Mitako, Vayru, Hanashim, Duragidala, Atadonai, Vaispifu, Saval, Adonai, Vayjunedarim, Vaymadonai, Dagado, Vivola, Ertana, Vaipiyana, Bimei Hadar, Shoshamim, Shoshalilov, Vaipalel Yana, El Adonai, Elokai, Mimei Hadaga, Vaynakara, Timitzara, Li, El Adonai, Vanini, Vivet, Sheol, Shivati, Shemati, Goli. Kashakani, Mitzvah, Bilbao, Yamin, then a Faris of the Danish, Commissioner of the Galaha, Liveru, Vania Marti, Grashi, Negarinaka, Afasipa Habi, Aliha Koshaka, Apipuni, Main, Nefesh, Comis of the Danish, Super Shi, Akite harim yarati ha'aretz v'yakavadi le'olam. Fata misha fata yadanai ukai. Itate belai nafshi et hadanai sakati. V'tavo elecha tefilati el ha'kodshacha. Meshamim ha'leishav. Hasadam yatzavu. Bani b'kol tata et v'chala asher nadati ashal v'ma. Yeshiva taladonai. Vaimar Adonai, Ladai, Vaike, Edyona, Ahedasha, Vaiki, Devadonai, Elyona, Shanit Limor, Kum, Leshon, Degi, Hayir Hagula, Ufrai, Lecha, Etafria, Ashana, Kudere, Lecha, Vaikam Yana, Vaye, Lech, Elni, Degi, Vadonai, Venive, Hatahigala, Levokim, Mahala, Shalosh Yamin. Vaikal Yana, Lavo, Vair, Mahala, Yom Echad, Vaikra, Vayamar, Odar, Vayim Yod, Benidei Nechbachai, Vayaminu, Antenidei Velokim, Vaikru Tom, Vayvishu Sakim, Midolam, Arkitanam, Vaiga Hadavar, El Melech Nidei, Vaikom, Nikisa, Viber, Adarto, Melai, Vechai Sak, Vayashev, Alefer, Vazei, Vaymer, Benin, Vay, Mitan hamelech u'velad le'mar Adam le'mar b'baratzon Al yidnu me'uma al yiru u'mayim al yishu V'yikasu sakim hadam v'hapchema v'yikru Elohim v'hoska v'yasa v'asuvu Ish neverko hara'ah u'min ha'mas al shebech ha'bekam Yodel yashu v'nikam Elohim Veshav, Meracham, Machal, Velonaveh, Vayrihana, Halokim, at Maseichem, Ki Shavu, Niderkam, Hara'ah, Vayinacham, Halokim, Hara'ah, Asher Dibaros, Lachem, Veloasa, Vayra Elohim, Agidullah, Vayikarlo, Vaypelo Adonai, Vilmar, Adonai, Hilazed Bari, Adamati, Admati, Alphakinki, Libra, Tashisha, Yadati, Kiyata, Elhanibrahim, Erapapayim, Virab, Kesa, Benikam, Ahara, Adonai, Kana, Adnashi, Mimani, Ki, Tomashi, Mechaya, Vaymer, Afekte, Harala, Vayteyana, Min Ha'ir, Vayeshev, Min Kevin, Vayir, Vayas, Lo Sham, Sukat, Vayeshev, Tachtecha, Vatel, Ad Asher Yireh, Ma Yeh Vayir, Vayman Elohim, Kikam Yameluna, Vatel, Vayotzel, El Roshel, Vahatzil, Lo, Vahatzil, Lo, Marato, Vaismak Yona, Al Digayon Simchakadola, Vayman Elohim, Tola Ad, Valot Hashar, Lamoharat, Vatachatakigayon, Vayabash, Vahikishrak Hashemesh, Vayman Elohim, Ruach Hadim, Harishi, Vatach Hashemesh, Al Rosh Yonah, Vatilah, Vayachal, Et Nafsho Lamud, Vayomer Tomati Mechaya, Vayomer Alechem, El Yonah, Hahitever Alecha, Aladikayom, Vayomer, Hetever Ali, Admavet, Vayomer Adonai, Ata Hasa, Ahakikayon, Asher, Lo Masabo, Lo Yigalto, Shigam Levaya, Ugam Levavad, Va'ani Lo Achuz, Amibe, Ha'ir Hagolah, Asher Yishba Harbeh, Yisham Esrebo Adam, Asher Lo Yadav, Benyamin Lismalo, Ufima Rabba, Yakamo, Chadnase Abom, Be'adel Pesha, Yisherit Nahalato, Lo Hazik Le'yadapo, Ki Kefetz, Hasen Hu, Yeshiva Kamenu, Yikos Avanatenu, Vitashli, Bimsalo, Tiam Holtatam, Titan, and Medley Yaakov, Hesed, Abraham, Asher Yishbako, Vatenu, Yimekad. Arilla, Katana, Hinimals, Alam, Sorful, and the Insidico, the road. Hanem on Hamid, Sam, the beer game, to go to the rob, and if I said that, then on, I saw one of them, then up, the dead money, the record. The car cut me for red, I believe she they come to milk, and my recommend, Baruch, Adonai, and on the road. Rockin', I'll see you, they tell you about the love of Nefesh Kashi, I can hear you, Baruch, Adonai, as a next young, but now, stop paying you, I don't know, you know, I'm going to be a death of my baby daddy, she's half off. In here I go, there I go, we've been off these little yeshes, are going to do it, upper in the video, keep your fish on your spot, hello. So you're, you got to remember a lump by it, but real fast, I don't know. Back in the lead.
Amen. Alright, continue returning to Torah scroll to the arc, bottom of page 690. Please rise if you are able. Yalalu Hashem Adonai, Ki Mitzkav Shema Levado, Hada V'Leretz V'Shamayim, V'Yarem K'Even V'Yama, Tila Lefa Chasida, B'Bnei Yisrael Am Krava, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Let the babies more. Page 694, no call your mom. Standing if you are able, if you need to take a seat at any time, definitely feel free to take care of yourself. We're going to continue with the Chatzi Kaddish, followed by the silent Amida for Mincha. Yiskada, Yiskada, Shmeraba, Vilmadi Rakuse, Vilmekmakuse, V'chayfana Vilmechon, V'chayfana V'chayfana V'glad Nakri, V'imru Amen, Yishmeraba Mebarak, V'olam Amel Meyah, Yisraf, 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 Shmergutla Berfet, Leila, Leila, Mikober Kasav Shirasa, Shishpachasa, V'neh, Kamasa, Samira V'la, V'imru, Amen. Please take your time through the silent Amida on page 424. going with the sound on the meter, take your time and have your pace. We're going to continue with the repetition as these gates start to slightly squeal shut. And we think about those last commitments and ideals that we want to squeeze through in it here. All right, we'll pick up on page 700 with the repetition of the meter. Please, guys. Adonai Eloheinu, Eloi Avosenu, Eloi Abraham, Eloi Yitzchak, Eloi Yaakov, Eloi Sarah, Eloi Rivka, Eloi Rachel, Eloi Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor VaNorah, El Elyon. Gonna chasadim tovim v'gonna kol v'rofer chasei avos imam umedi goal libnei b'neihem v'leman shema b'yahava Yisod chachamim leonim v'milamed das mevinim v'tzachapeh v'silav chachmanim Let us open and name of Malim Rachamim, Mochel Basaleach, Lebanim, middle page 700. Zakrei Nelechayim, Nelechapis Bachayim, Tefazin Besefer Chayim, L'man Chayim Chayim, Melech Hazeh Choked Mashiach Maged, Baruch Ata Adonai, Magen Avraham, Mepoked Tzara, Ata Gibor Le'lam Adonai, Mepayim Eitim, Atrav Le'Hoshea, Metzav B'Chayim, Mechesed, Mechayim B'Shim V'Rachamim Rabim Hayaya, Samech L'Afrim V'Rachem, V'Avim U'Atir Asurim, Mechayim Emelaso, L'Shenei Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Eloheinu, Avinu, Malkeinu, Mashiach. ויש מזרח מהשני, שני כוחה לכם ויעש לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ. אדוני מלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. דברי קודשך כסף לאמור, אם אדוני לעולם, עלי ציין את עבדו יעבור. עבדו נקיש גבך, ונצח נספים קדשתך נקיש, ושפך עלינו מפינו ויאמר שלום בית, יא מלך גדול וקדש אתה. Come Masacha, Vismach is Masacha, V'Amalcha, Kosach V'Tzidkachacha, Hamasacha, Tzidkash Adon, Akov Masacha, go for the next day. And Tachachach, Neila Kol Masacha, V'Amascha, Kol Mashabrasa, V'Rucha Kol Masim, V'Shvil V'Necha Kol Abrim, V'Yasu Kolam Aguda Echas, Lasat Ritzoncha B'Levav Shalem. כמו שידענו, אדוני אלוהינו, שהשלטה לפניך, עוז בידך, גבורה בימינך, ושמך נורא על כל מה שבראת. וכן תן כבוד, אדוני עמך, תהילה לרעך, זקפה לדורשך, ופתאום פלמך למך, שמחה לארצך, וששם לעירך במהרה ויאמנו. וכן צדיקים יראו וישמחו וישרם יעלזו, וחסידים ברינה יגילו, ולא תתקתק בתפייה, וכל שקלת כעשן תפלק, כן תעביר ממשלה זדד מן הארץ. ושים לפתה, אדוני לבדך וכל מעשיך, בארץ ציון משכן כבודך, וירושלים עיר קודשך, כך כתוב בדברי קודשך, ימלוך אדוני לעולם מלך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. קדוש אתה ונורא שמך, ואין אלוהים מבלעדיך, כך כתוב, לפי אדוני תפילת המשפט האל, הקדוש נקדש בצדקה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש. אתה וקרתנו מכל עמים, אהבת אותנו וארצי סבנו, ורממתנו מכל שנס, וקידשתנו מצוותיך, וגרבתנו מלכנו לעבודתך, שמך הגדול והקדוש עלינו קראת. ותיתן לנו ולמלאנו בבאס יום הכיפור הזה, למקלה וצליחה, וכפרה ולמחבה, אז כל עוונותינו מקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מישראל. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, יעלה ויבוא ויגיע וירא וירצה, וישמע, ויפקד וזכר זיכרוננו ויקדוננו, וזיכרון אבותינו וזיכרון משיח בן דוד עבדך, זיכרון ירושלים עיר קודשך, וזיכרון כל עמך בית ישראל לפניך, ותפעל לטובה וכן וחסד לרחמים, וחיים לשלום ביום הכיפורים הזה. זכרנו אדוני אלוהינו בא לטובה, ופקדנו בא לברכה, והושיענו בא לחיים, ובדבר ישועה ורחמים חוץ לפנינו, ורחם עלינו והושיענו, כי אליך עינינו, כי המלך חנון ורחם אתה. Page 710. Shema Koleinu Adonai Aleinu, Chutz Rachem Aleinu, V'kabel Barachim Ratzon Es Tefilaseinu. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha V'nashiva, Chadesh Yameinu Kekadosh. אל תשליכנו מלפניך, ורוח קודשך תיקח ממני. אל תשליכנו לזקנה, כי פלחכנו אל תעזבנו. אל תעזבנו אדוננו, אל תרחק ממנו. אל תעזבנו, אל תשליכנו, אל תרחק איתנו את הזמן. כסדך ודרכך, תיתנו דברי שמך. נוספים לבבתך ונשב אליך באמץ ובשלים למען שמך הגדול תמחור ותסלח לבנינו ככסוף דברי קודשך למען שמך אדוני וסלחת לבני קריאך. On page 712 Eloheinu v'Elokei Avosseinu slach lanu v'chalanu B'tarachim v'chanun, anu k'shei oreh v'ta'er chapayim, anu mlei avon v'tam lei rachamim, anu yemenu k'tzal over v'tahu, shnatecha lo yitamu. Page 714. Eloheinu v'Elokei Avosseinu, tevel v'necha tfilaseinu, v'al yisleim et tfilaseinu, she'enu nachnu azekini k'shei oreh, l'mar l'v'necha, Adonai Eloheinu, v'Elokei Avosseinu tzadikim v'nachnu v'lo chatanu, aval anachnu chatanu. משפטך הטובים ולא שבה לנו, ואתה צדיק וקבע עלינו, כי אמס עשיסה, ואנחנו ישנו. On page 718 for all this. אחרי שחטאנו לפניך באונס וברצון, אחרי שחטאנו לפניך בבגידה. אחרי שחטאנו לפניך בחוזק יד ויד כולם אלוהס לחפש סלח לנו מחל לנו גמר לנו ושחטאנו לך ותמוס לסיים לך Nefa v'neshef v'marbi v'yakula meloas leifas slavanu mechalanu kapelanu v'shafatanu v'nefa v'siach spasenu v'cheshatanu v'nefa Middle of page 722. Avinu Malkinu Zafarach Mechabash Kaspa V'chala Derer V'cher V'rav V'shvi Mashli Savan Ushmat V'magefa V'chol Pegara V'chol Matala V'chol Tekala V'chol Ktata V'chol Minei Puraniat V'chol Zera Ra'a V'sinas Sinam Melenu Melko B'nei Brisecha Tav L'chayim L'chayim Tovim B'nei Brisecha Blue Hashem Vav Emes Ayush Rosinu V'Zrosinu Sela Baruch Ata Adonai Ata Shimcha Fanel Adai Zim Shalom Tabaracha Chen B'Chesed Rachamim Aleinu Chol Kol Yisrael Amecha Barchenu V'Avinu Kulanu Kechad Ber Panecha Ki Ber Panecha Natata Lanu Adonai Eloheinu, Torah Sayin V'Chesed, Tzedaka, Uvracha V'Rachamim B'Chayim B'Shalom. V'tov B'necha V'Rachas Simcha, Yisrael, V'chol Es, V'chol Shabi Shlomecha, V'Sefer Chayim B'Racha V'Shalom, U'Parnasa Tova, Nizacher V'Nichased L'Panecha, Anachnu B'chol Amcha Beis Yisrael Chayim, Tovim al Shalom, Anachnu B'chol Amcha Beis Yisrael Chayim, Tovim al Shalom. Baruch Ata Adonai, Oseh HaShalom. Please rise for Kiddush Shalem. Yes, Gadda ve'yes, Gadda Shanei Rabba, Ve'yamadi Rabbi, V'zeh Ve'amich Masvoseh Ve'chayeklan, Ev'yom Eplanu Ve'chayek, Ve'chol Beis Yisrael Ve'gamla V'man Karim, Ve'yimnu Amen, Yeheshmi Rabbamen, Barak Le'olam, Me'amaya, Yes, Barak Le'yish, Barak Le'yish, Aman Ve'yitnaseh, Ve'yish, Barak Ve'yish, Ve'yish, Thank you, Shabbat, Le'ela, Le'ela, Mikra, Ve'kasa, She'etzah, Everyone take a seat. Feel free to take a couple minutes break. We're starting up back again in approximately 3 minutes for the joint conservative reform Neila coming together as an entire community as Agadah Achad to welcome send off is here. So the yellow folder in the back there has our packets.
Okay, I'm not crazy. I did and now? Who still needs a packet?
What I'm gonna do? Send a bunch down, pass it to them as well.
You want to? Yeah, in just a moment.
Yeah. Thank you.
One extra. So the other person. That's 10. Sound all good now? Alright, step up. And hold for a second. Good idea. Any help?
Glad. I just wanted to say hi. Good to see you. It's been a long time since we've seen each other, like, actually.
These. Oh, there's you only need this.
Yeah, this is yours.
Oh wow.
That's immediate.
Okay.
That way, no alternate.
Fair enough. Zoe's over there.
Hey, welcome everyone. We'll say a little bit more in a minute. We're so glad to have you all here. We're just going to start off with the song. The words are on page 2 of these packets, which will be our official Seder reading for the evening. We are good. We are glad. We are the breath of an imperfect God. We are good. We are glad. We are the breath of an imperfect God. We are good. We are glad. We are the breath of an imperfect God. We are good. We are glad. We are the breath of an imperfect God. That's all the words, second part. So they're going to just do it a couple of times, let everyone have the chance to sit in it, take it in, and feel the sweetness. We are good. We are glad. We are the breath of an imperfect God. We are good. We are glad. We are the breath of an imperfect God.
let's not forget to breathe while we're heading towards the end of Yom Kippur and this Neila service, right? So just, you don't need my permission, and you also don't need me to cue you, but it's a good reminder. I know that at a certain point in that Niyun, I had stopped breathing, so I guess I'm mostly saying this to myself. Okay, good. We're almost at the end of Yom Kippur. I hope that doesn't come as a surprise to anyone. Sometimes things don't make sense until the end, right? The end kind of might hold for us the piece of the puzzle that when we put it in its place, everything else that's led up to this moment starts to unfold and reveal itself in a new or in a different way and starts to make sense. So to me, Neila is just an opportunity to start to synthesize and integrate whatever it is that we felt, experienced, uncovered, revealed, or perhaps what might even still be for us concealed on this day. I love the words of this Nigun. A little ironic to say words of the Nigun, but I think everyone knows what I mean. I love this, we are good and we are flawed, because there's a tension there. And I think Yom Kippur and Jewish life in general is really about tensions and the space in between. These are creative tensions for us. And I also love this line, we are the breath of an imperfect God. I think there's some spiritual audacity, a little bit of chutzpah in that line. But at the same time, I think that Yom Kippur in general calls for some audacity from us to believe that we can recommit ourselves to something, that we can be better, that we can grow, and that we can change, and that we can evolve maybe even with God. So I've been leading High Holidays here for 13 years, and this is the first time we've ever come together to end Yom Kippur. It's really special. I think it's important. Alan said it's about community, and so that to me is the guiding principle and the value. And community sometimes is uncomfortable. I know that there are prayers here that I'm not as familiar with, melodies. I've been a rabbi for a long time. And so I'm prepared and embracing a little bit of that discomfort. And I hope that you'll meet me in that space, because I think on the other side of discomfort maybe is vulnerability, and on the other side of vulnerability is maybe some deeper sense of truth and connection. And that's what I wish for all of us during our time together. That and a good distraction from the smells that are wafting from the kitchen. And Alan, I'll turn it back over to you.
Sure, and I'll say for myself, like I really tried to leave behind even some of the songs that I hold dear, or like placing in the ones that felt really fundamental. It's been a rough year, and we were together. The word about this song, my friend Dr. Levine wrote it. She comes up with this idea, just looking at the universe that we live in, that some people call God, right? Everything that exists is imperfect. And the last year has taught us that. Right? The chemistry that makes atoms fit together and proteins bond is also responsible for a pandemic. And the biology that keeps this world alive is also beating climate change. And we see that imperfection in ourselves, right? We are imperfect beings that are motivated by our biology and our chemistry, but we also have this spark of goodness in us. And so the cosmic imperfection is mirrored in ourselves. So I just want to try something a little bit different and give everyone a chance. There are pens and pencils inside if you would like to journal, but you can also just sit silently and reflect. What are some of the things that have felt imperfect for you over the past year? What have been those places that have been destroyed? And what have been those places where you've created something new? So let's just take a breath. We're going to take 3 minutes, so settle in. I'm just going to sing softly as you reflect or write or do whatever feels necessary.
So in the packet, these are questions that could guide our reflection if we want.
Yes, exactly. And you'll see space in the packets if you do want to do a little bit of thing. thoughts or anything that really jumps to your mind? Urgent or important in this moment?
Our time together will be enriched with a community of sharing. I know there's a lot of hesitation around sharing. We're tired or just uncomfortable with that whole sort of performance aspect of it, but sharing to me is really just an act of generosity. And so when we do share, I think it enriches those around us. And so if anybody has any responses or any thoughts, it would be a gift for us to be able to hear them. And I think that our time between now and Big Fest would be enriched through some voices if we could.
I'll just say the second one, room for compassion. I think this is the first time in my life where I have felt so confronted on a daily, if not hourly basis with people who think so incredibly differently than I do about virtually everything. And so that for me is a real place for holding compassion for them, for me, and for the folks who might be affected by both their way of seeing things and my way of seeing things. I think that's probably the challenge for me this year.
That's really meaningful. The real question around compassion for me is, where is it hardest to have compassion? For some people, it's hardest to have self-compassion. For some, I guess maybe in some of our warm relationships, like family, friends, maybe friends is probably for me the easiest area to have compassion. Then what about people that we don't know, right? And what about people that we know and don't like? What about people that we think are really part of the problem in this world? And is it possible to have compassion in those areas and back toward ourselves as well? And how might compassion move the conversation forward?
My grandparents live in Atlanta, and this past year my grandma died, which was obviously an imperfect thing that happened during already such a hard year. But where I saw space for compassion was trying to fit in seeing my grandpa into my busy schedule of being a student and be able to be there for him, especially during times like the Jewish holidays. So that was really meaningful.
So sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And I think there's some confusion around like what is compassion, and I think the key about compassion is it's equal parts empathy, but then the need to turn that empathy into some sort of action. So I could imagine, what you shared about finding time to make those visits in the midst of a hectic schedule. That to me is the piece that really has the compassion with it, because of course we're heartbroken for people who have lost loved ones and who are lonely and feeling all of that, but compassion is finding something, is doing something.
I think we've all figured out, there's a lot of talk about how the last year and a half have shown us what really matters, what's really important. And I think that I've been finding myself holding myself to a lot of standards from a time that doesn't really exist anymore. Professionally, personally, etc. And I think that there's room for compassion in allowing myself to adjust to what's happening, not feeling the need to meet something that can't be met anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if you feel this, but as you were speaking, I was feeling a sense of loss for what was. Not that it was necessarily so great, but it was something that was. I was also thinking about the line from the liturgy, Hashivenu Adonai Alecha B'Nafshuva, will return to you. And my wife, who's a rabbi, was giving a sermon this morning about that line. Really, the idea that returning doesn't necessarily mean going back. There's some way in which returning might also mean going forward. I'm not sure exactly what to do with that or how to put it all together, but yeah, if we're living by 2019 standards, we're set up for some sort of unhappiness. can turn to the Amidah. Just how many times have we recited these words in the last 10 days and in the last 24, 25 hours? Many, many times. I think part of the beauty of tefillah is that I'm just thinking about a lifetime of reciting this prayer and realizing in this moment, I don't think I've ever had the same kavanah 2 times reciting these words. And so I look forward to just being open to how these prayers might strike me and how I might engage with them in this moment. We have a note here about Mechaye Hamitim, which some may know is recited upon seeing a person we haven't seen in 12 months. It's a lovely kind of Jewish way to greet an old friend back from the dead. But there's more to it, just to kind of give us some Homer Lidrosh. Abu Draham says it refers to waking from sleep and benefiting from rain. It's fascinating to think about what those 2 things may or may not have in common. And so an invitation, if we're looking for kavanah, what are ways that we've been revived in the past year? What still remains asleep, deadened, or dormant? Can we wake it up in this moment? And we'll recite a vote, and then we'll have an opportunity for some more reflection and writing with our own thoughts, whatever that looks and feels like.
I'm going to face forward to this part of the Amidah, not to turn my back away from you, but just to direct all of our thoughts in the same space together. So there's, feel free to take a seat. There's so much that is bearing on my mind that I'm waking up from. Just coming into a conversation with 5 people around me, trying to pay attention to each of them at once, realizing that I can't just X out of my Zoom screen and click away. Trying to look someone in the eyes and just make that basic sense of connection. Trying to build community, make an impact in the world, figure out what can I actually do to make things better. There's so much that's just starting to stir. So I just want to give everyone another minute or two to sit in that. What are these things that you want to wake up, and what is coming to light for you right now, and what is still dormant. So we'll just take another minute or two to sit with that. Any thoughts coming to mind? As we're gathering these emotions together in the room, this last stretch. What's coming away? What still is?
I would say over the last year, I've left behind some behaviors that weren't serving me, and revived myself to some better self as a result, and maybe over the next coming year, this will bring to life maybe some new ways that I wasn't even present before. So
I can relate to that.
I think like a lot of my routines that I like try to hold myself to, I just really have fallen out of in the last year, and I'm starting to get back into them. But for me, I had to forgive myself a lot for just like not being where I want to be in a lot of different areas, and like that being okay, and trying to get started on a journey back into those things. But like forgiving myself for it taking a while, and that being hard.
I'm a pretty optimistic person in general. I think that's sort of like the universe is kind of pushes us in that direction. But as in this moment, I'm realizing that I need to reawaken some of my faith in humanity. I really believe in us as a species, but it's very easy to lose sight of that. I mean, in a one-on-one situation, it's very easy. On a kind of grander scale, I'm finding that to be a little harder, but I know that in order for me to do the things that I do and live my life in a way that I feel proud of, I need to be able to preserve that belief in human beings, kind of on a larger scale.
How do you do that when you keep getting slapped in the face with it every day?
Well, turn the other cheek. I don't know. It's a good question, right? I mean, it's it's part of the question, although a good slap certainly wakes you up. Yeah, I don't know. Fortunately, it's not. It doesn't feel quite like that. But yeah, it is a fair question.
Moment, we're going to say the Kedusha, which we'll rise for, and do it to the tune of Eliyahu on the, this is on page 3, just a word, Lida tune. Elijah the prophet, we say this on Passover, also on the time after Shabbat. It's supposed to be the forerunner of Mashiach, of the Messiah. When Elijah comes, the Messiah is not close behind. Also associated with Yom Kippur, by a really interesting story. One of the rabbis is wandering around in the Talmud, and he runs into Eliyahu. He just sees him on the street. Very excited. He says, Elijah, when is Mashiach coming? When is Mashiach going to be? Elijah says, go ask the Mashiach. He's standing right now in the gates of Rome. You'll know him because he's with the beggars, and all the other beggars have sores in their arms, and they're bandaged up. He has sores too, but he hasn't bandaged them because he's ready to go whenever he's needed. So the rabbi is so excited, he goes to the Mashiach. He says, when are you coming? And Mashiach says, Hayom, today. The rabbi is stunned. He's so excited. He goes back home, waits the entire day, and the Mashiach hasn't come yet. And this is the worst thing that can happen to someone. He thinks the Messiah is going to come and doesn't. And so he goes back to Eliyahu, complains, says, he let me down, he lied to me. Elijah said, you don't understand. What he was saying was, today he would only listen. It's a quote from the Bible. And this idea that actually the hope, the deliverance that we're waiting for, it is here. It is available for us. We can build a kinder and more compassionate and just community. That's right on the threshold today, if only we listen to each other. So we're going to start off with the tune. It's like this. On page 5, please rise if you are able. Adonai Tzebaoth Mocharetz Kevada Kevada Malech Olam Yeshar Zasholim Zeladai Yemekom Kevada Leumazat Baruch Yomeru Yes, feel free to take a seat. I'll make an introduce where we're headed.
Be doing music confession. Hopefully we're familiar with that by now. I guess all I would really want to say here is one of my favorite teachings of Hazal, the rabbis, is that we should do teshuvah one day before we die. And of course, the genius of that insight is that we never know when that moment is coming for us. Some people find that to be a real downer. As someone who was kind of raised on a healthy diet of Camus and Sartre and Nietzsche and existentialism, I find that to be the animating principle of my life, which is that we just don't know. We just commemorated 20 years since 9/11, which, you know, for those of us who have vivid memories of that, is a real milestone. A friend of mine, pointed out There will be a lot of tributes on 9/11, but on 9/10, on September 10th, almost 3,000 people lived their last full day on this earth and had no idea. And that's the human condition. The human condition isn't buildings being blown up by airplanes. The human condition is that we just don't know. We don't know what is allotted to us. And so what if this was the last vidui? What if this was the last confession? What would we want to express in that moment? And not to be overly dramatic because it's just Yom Kippur. But I think that's an existential reality that we can access if we want to.
Okay. We're heading into a lot of singing, so please rise. You're going to hear some classic here. El Melech Yosef, al Kisei Rachmin, Nisnaheg B'Chasidut, Pishek, Smalcha Lefnot Amma, Mavir Rishon, Marbeh Mechila L'Chatim, Maslicha L'Fashem, Oset Tzaka, Simchon B'Savra, Lo Karasan Tikmal, El Harei Solane, Lamar Shloshes Zachar lanu hayam, b'risha shetzeh, kama shadata lehem, av mikedem kama shekaseh, v'yired Adonai banan, v'yisyatzeh b'mashem, v'yikra b'shem Adonai, v'yavor Adonai al panav, v'yikra, bolded at the top, Adonai. Move on to the Ashamnu, this great confession. Just this last line, Anumami Rakav Atumami Renu. You are the one to whom we speak, and we are the ones to whom you speak. Strange comparison after all of this, right? It doesn't make much sense. The insight here is that something fundamental about being human, just like being a servant of God or being a sheep outside of the things that are outside of our control, is being in dialogue with other people and in the universe around us and coming away changed, right? I don't think it's a mistake, but this is one of the last lines that we say on Yom Kippur, that the process of tshuva only happens in relationship with the person right next to us, with our community here, and ultimately.
Now, there's something interesting, a little bit of a tension for me. I'm seeing this as there's a lot of speaking. I know the listening is implied. Since you shared that story about how Yom Yimbekolo Tishma, today if we would only listen, since I know the listening is implied here, but I feel like the way that the liturgy reads is less dialogic than we're imagining. I know the dialogue is there, but you speak to us, we speak to you. But where's the listening? Do you think the exchange is really embedded there?
Yeah, it's just a perfect segue to the other teaching they wanted to share, which is second to last, middle line, Anitzan Echa V'Atorenu. The Netivot Shalom says the first letters of each of those words, Aleph, Tzadi, Aleph, Resh, spell Otzar, treasure. Why are we saying this now? Because there is a treasure inside each of us, but it's hidden, it's the moon. And the other people around us can't actually see that. And why we're crying out to God now, Shema Kolenu, is because there is this individuality in us that the other people aren't really able to listen to. And that we each need to dig down deep inside of the people around us. We move on to this confession, the last one, at long last, on page 7. Please stay standing if you are able. Anu azefanim v'tarafim v'fanim Anu k'shei oref v'ta'eref apayi Anu mlei avan v'tamlei rafamim Anu yemenu k'tzol elber v'ta' Rush natafa v'yidamer Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoseinu Develop nefesh v'laseinu V'al tisalam mitzvinatenu Shenu nafnu azefanim K'shei oref l'mar l'fenecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoseinu Tzadikim v'nafnu v'lo chatanu Aval anafnu v'Avoseinu chatanu. Scroll to paragraph number 7. Coming towards these moments, the gates are continuing to close. Feel free to take a seat. Like Rebecca was saying, there are no gates physically closing. Every year, any day could be the day before our deaths, and so everything is telescoped into this one moment. But there's one gate that Talmud says is always open, which is the gate of tears. Tears can break down any gate. This raises a question which I just want to sit with in these last 20 minutes. What are the gates that we want open? What are the things that we want to first open this year that have been closed? What are the things that are still shut to us? So I just want to take a couple of minutes to sit on that again, to think, to write, to hum, and then we'll come back together for this last plea of opening up those gates. these gates that are so close? When do we want to open?
The gates of reconciliation.
Reconciliation.
It's of intellectual honesty, communal responsibility. Gates of humility. I got a lot of gates there.
It's hospitals, healthcare for everyone.
Opportunity.
Laughter.
Catharsis.
Awareness.
Civility.
Love. Accountability.
Pretty good start.
Gates. I want to open up. We need a lot of mercy and a lot of gentleness with each other. So we're closing in on the end here. We're gonna wind up with Avinu Malkeinu, Kadi Shalem, and the last repetition of these final three lines. But just to lead us into that, as we're thinking about all of these gates that we want to open, we're going to return one last time to the song of our imperfections, of our brokenness, and the desire that we have to put the pieces back together. We are good. We are glad. We are the breath of an imperfect God. We are good. We are glad. We are the breath of an imperfect God. We are good. We are glad. We are the breath of an imperfect God. We are good. We are glad. We are the breath of an imperfect God. We are good.
think it's, we should just follow the road that's been set for us.
I'll just add my last piece, the Torah that I've been saving up for just a minute. The Karl and the Rebbe, the rabbi was once asked, what is the worst thing that the Yetzer Hara, the evil urges within us, can make us do? His response was to make a person forget that they are the child of royalty. And that is what we are claiming when we say Avinu Malkeinu, not just our parent, our king, but that each of us is worthy of love, that we are each precious in our own right, and that we have something inside of us that cannot be taken away from us because it is so important and so valuable. And ultimately the gates are closing, but we in this room get to decide for the next year, is that going to be a reality for us? Are we going to be able to see that child of God in each of us, or are we going to let it slip away? Not that much as the gates close is still in our hands. Pick up Avinu Malkeinu on page 8 of the packet. Please rise. Avinu Malkeinu Vatanu Lefanecha Avinu Malkeinu Vatanu Lefanecha Avinu Malkeinu Imanu Melech Elaka Avinu Malkeinu Imanu Masmecha Avinu Malkeinu Kodesh Avinu Malkeinu Batel Me'elenu Kovzeres Kasher Avinu Malkeinu Batel Mashros Ha'anenu Avinu Malkeinu Asher Atzah So'edenu Avinu Malkeinu Kol Tzar U'Masti Neilenu Avinu Malkeinu Stam Yad Masitenu Shashrein Avinu Malkeinu Kol Deber Aseret Rav U'Shti U'Mashti Sa'ava Mivne B'Yitzhaka Avinu Malkeinu Manam Mekifa Minaklasacha Avinu Malkeinu withhold the plague from your inheritance. Avinu Malkeinu Eslach Mokala Kol Avanaseinu Avinu Malkeinu Sheinu Avinu Mineged Inacha Avinu Malkeinu Mechok Rachmecha Rabib Kol Shitrei Chavaseinu Avinu Malkeinu Chazirenu B'Shuva Shlema Lefanecha Avinu Malkeinu Shlach Rifua Shlema L'Cholei Amecha Avinu Malkeinu Praroa Gzar Dinenu Avinu Malkeinu Zachreinu B'Zman Tov Lefanecha Avinu Malkeinu Chasmenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim Avinu Malkeinu Chasmenu B'Sefer Geula B'Yeshua Avinu Malkeinu Chasmenu B'Sefer Parnasa V'Chalkala Avinu Malkeinu Chasmenu B'Sefer Zechuyas Avinu Malkeinu Chasmenu B'Sefer Sliva Mechila Avinu Malkeinu Latmachon Yishu B'Kara Avinu Ham Karnis Amata Malkeinu Ham Karnis Shifa Avinu Malkeinu Leit Malkeinu Shmach Kolenu B'Kush Rachim Malkeinu B'Kam Rachim Ratzon Es Jivazim Malkeinu Spark Yachon Malkeinu Natash Vinarek Donatanaba Avinu Malkeinu Sha'as Rachim V'Shazam Yelchanata Malkeinu V'Malkeinu B'Shapim Man Harafim Al Shem B'Shap Avinu Malkeinu Aslam Tu Fim Al Yipudach Malkeinu Asat Aman Ba'ekim Mayim B'Yishmata Malkeinu Nekam Nikmas Dam Avadacha Hashach Malkeinu Asat Aman Avinu Avinu Malkeinu Asel Mancha V'Hoshienu Avinu Malkeinu Asel Manchamecha Harabim Avinu Malkeinu Asel Manchemcha Hagadol Hagibor Benora Shinikra Aleinu This last moment together, and welcome to everyone who is also joining us on the stream. Yes, Kanda yes, Kanda Shem Eraba Be Amadiva Amen.
Quick seat. Mr. Faustin Allen and Rabbi Michael for leading us in our service tonight and for being such great high holiday companions for us over the course of the past 2 weeks. We're very grateful for them. And we're almost done with the high holidays, so that's really great. Before Rachel blows the shofar, just a couple of really quick announcements. Break fast for those who are staying is going to be out in the foyer there, and it's to go. So we invite you to take your food and head back to your dorms, your apartments, and you can enjoy a break fast there. Shabbat tomorrow night at its usual time. Service is at 6:30, dinner at 7. It is tropical Shabbat, so that should be exciting. Next week is a short week also because of Sukkot in the middle of the week, but we'll have Shabbat, and then we'll have all sorts of great Sukkot programming happening starting at the end of next week, so you can check the Hive for all those details. And with that, I call Rachel, who's going to blow the shofar, and we'll do the show. It's 8:18 in 55 seconds. What?
I have
My watch says 7:30.
Shema Yisrael, let's blow.
Good try. Our last guess. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed. Adonai Hu Elohim. 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 Ya Gedolah.
Oh yeah. Next year in Jerusalem.
Thank you so much. Are there services on? I am not the